Now the logic board isn't something that you necessarily need to replace. I wouldn't even really recommend it unless, you have an older 350 or one of the original 400 megahertz models. And even those, it doesn't, necessarily need it. You can usually pick up a 5 or 600 megahertz board on eBay, relatively cheap, usually around 20 bucks. Anything more than 25, you're basically overpaying for one. And if you are looking at doing it, I would get a 600 megahertz board just because it's really the fastest one that you can normally get. Apple made these up to 700 megahertz, but the 700 megahertz models are very rare just because of the fact that they were only out for a few months and they were the highest end. So if you're looking to upgrade it, look at getting a 600 for it. So if you want to upgrade your logic board, continue on. There are 10 screws that need to be removed. There are 8 here, 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 and one back here. Basically, really, the only 2 that you don't need to remove are, there's one's going to be on the port side here and here. Those 2 can remain in place, but any others, if you see them, go ahead and take them out. So once you've got the 8 screws removed, there are 2 up in the corner here that are slightly more difficult to get out. So what you're going to do is just rotate the iMac, and they are located right back in here. And what you're going to do is you are going to take a screwdriver, and you're just going to slide it in between the speaker and the hard drive and optical drive, and you're just going to start pushing out towards you. Just going to do it a little bit, and what that's going to do is it's going to loosen up this speaker here, so you can just take it, and you should be able to wiggle it right off, and if you can't, just bend it back a little more, and then there you go. You can see now I've got it loosened up, and you can now get access to these screws. So I'm just going to take these 2 out, and then these 2 screws you want to put separately because they are different from the rest of the screws that hold down the logic board. Okay, so now that we have all of the screws removed, we're just going to rotate it back. And what we're going to do is we are going to disconnect the optical drive. I'm just going to slide that cable out. And once you make sure that you've got the hard drive and the optical drive disconnected, you just want to lift it up by grabbing the ports over here on the side. And you can also kind of grasp it at the back here. And it should just lift up. There's connectors here and here, so that's kind of where you need to pull on that side. You can just pick this up over here, and it should slide right out. So we've got our new logic board here, and what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and install this. Just going to slide it in. You want to make sure if you have one of the airport antenna cables, you want to hold that, make sure it doesn't get stuck underneath the board. Just going to pick this up, and you're just going to want to check the connectors on the bottom and make sure those line up. Just kind of want to firmly press down on those. Just want to make sure they are completely in place. You also want to check the screw holes on the board and just make sure those are all lining up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to want to reconnect our optical drive. Now this can be a little tricky, so what you're going to do is you're going to take this cable and you're just going to kind of pull it back, and then push it down. Just going to force it down in there, and then eventually it'll line up and you can just push it right in. And we're going to reconnect our hard drive, the data, and the power. And what we're going to do is we're also going to grab the memory DIMMs from our old logic board. We're going to go ahead and install those into the new board. Now you want to be careful with these, because if you are upgrading the board, if you're going from one of the 350 or the 400s, sometimes the RAM sticks go in the opposite direction on the older boards. So you just want to make sure that your pins are lined up in the same way on the stick as they are on the board. And the last thing that we want to do is we want to put the old time battery into the new one. Now, a lot of the time, these batteries actually have gone bad. So if your computer's not going to be constantly connected to the internet, And even if it is, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and replace this. So what we're going to do is, we've got a new working battery here. You can get these online for about $2, and we're just going to line that up. And you can see there's a big plus next to the slot for it that shows where the positive end goes. So I'm just going to stick that in, and then all you have to do is screw it back down. Okay, so we are going to rotate the iMac, and we're just going to screw the 2 power supply screws down. So we'll line those up, just put those right back in. Okay, then we're going to take our speaker, and we're just going to go ahead and, you see there's 2 little side tabs and there's 1 main tab. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get that main tab lined up so it goes down into the little hole, and then you should be able to just push it right back into place. It may wiggle a little bit, it may be a little loose, but that is perfectly okay. It's not going to harm anything, and it's going to be held in well enough once the bottom case is on that it's not going to come off. So I'm just going to rotate it back, and then we are just going to put all of the rest of our little screws in.